Our first panelist represents a story of struggle as a child of immigrant parents and struggled to survive on many different fronts, including being a single mother, raising her child on her own, all at the same time while earning a degree at UC Berkeley in legal studies. And now I can proudly call her the Honorable Ching Tao, because she is the first Hmong woman to be elected to City Council of the City of Oakland. And then we have Priscilla Ching, who proudly calls herself a San Gabriel Valley girl. She earned her organizational stripes in organized labor, where she worked her way up to become the chief of staff of the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, which is remarkable for someone at her age. And she didn't escape the gubernatorial candidate's eye, Gavin Newsom at that time, who tapped her to become a senior aide on his campaign. And subsequently, when he became governor, he anointed her that humongous task of being his director of external affairs. And she's also known to have the ear of the governor. Our third panelist is Sherry Yang, who's had 13 years of experience in politics, policy, and communications. And then she took a job with the legislature as a staff person to Senator Melissa Hurtado. Didn't take her long to ascend into the chief of staff position. And I know how difficult it is to be in that competitive position to achieve chief of staff. She's the first Hmong woman to become chief of staff in the state legislature. We have a lot of barriers broken here. And then that wasn't enough. The California Democratic Party decided to steal her away because they saw her talent. So she's now communication director for the California Democratic Party. Then we have Lindsay Nieta, who I have had the pleasure to see her career soar. She is now the executive director for the California Lead, Women's Lead organization, which really is responsible for building a pipeline of dynamic women who are seeking public office in local, state, and federal levels of government. She's kind of an entrepreneur too, because she also started a champagne bar here in Sacramento. She's a woman of many talents, and to achieve the vice president title of the very prominent Mercury Public Affairs company kind of demonstrates her talents. I think you could tell by the caliber of women here that you're going to hear from. We want them to kind of share lessons learned during their pathway, because again, these are women who can share their midterm pathway up the ladder with all of you. So I'm going to start with a question to all the panelists. We'll start with the Honorable with this question and have all of you just follow her responses. What were the major factors in your life that steered you towards careers in either public service, all of you in public service, or an elected office? And I'll start with you.
Thank you so much, Maylee. I just want to say thank you for paving the path for us to follow behind you. You're always lifting while you climb, and that's continues to be something that I charge myself with, is, continue to lift while we climb. That question is so, there's just so much. But as a daughter of refugees, really seeing my parents, their struggle. And at a young age, I really saw that there were so much of the haves and have-nots. And the have-nots really throughout, just really at no fault of their own. And so for me, at an early age, it was all about the connection between how a family's quality of life is determined by their access to wealth, right? Their access to networks. And then not only that, but really, when I, as a single mom and putting myself through college at UC Berkeley, every summer I would look for an internship to see, a paid internship, right? To get the experience, and not just that, but to really get some funding so that I can, put the basic needs on in my household with my son. And I did an internship through APAPA, actually. And at that time, they were giving out $1,000 stipends. And so I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. But really, that was actually the determining factor of really understanding, hey, government and local government is where I need to be, because you only know what you know. And growing up as a daughter of refugee, it was, there wasn't much that we learned at home about local government and impact. And so, lo and behold, through the APAPA internship, it's just a program to get API into local government and civic duty. And it changed my life because there was no turning back. I became a chief of staff for a council member on the Oakland City Council. And then from there, I realized that, oh my goodness, there in the city of Oakland, there's about 35% API, but yet not one person on the council represented that population, right? No one looks like me. And so when the seat became open, it was a contentious election and campaign. But, I knew that it was my responsibility to actually, with the support of the community, to actually run for the seat and be that person where folks can come in and won't be fearful, won't look different, right? And so that was really, all of the push that I needed from my life experiences all the way until, understanding that there's huge impacts made at the legislative levels.
Thank you for paying tribute to the APAPA internship and leadership program. You are a product of what APAPA's program is all about. Priscilla, San Gabriel girl, how did you do it?
Look, I think we were really lucky, and I grew up in Monterey Park, to have someone like Congresswoman Judy Chu, who broke a lot of ceilings to get to where she's at, to inspire a next generation of young API leaders. I was lucky, though, in terms of being able to have immigrant parents who were able to succeed and have that American dream. And so I never thought I would frankly get into advocacy. I was like, I'm going to be a corporate law attorney. I'm going to make a lot of money, and then I'll just give back, on my free time and on the weekends. And it wasn't until, frankly, I began to meet with everyday workers in Los Angeles who came to this country just to work hard and provide for their families and couldn't do it. I saw people who worked, 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week and could barely provide the basics for their families. And frankly, it was those stories, those individual stories of, as a young organizer, community organizer, and labor organizers, I sat in living rooms and at kitchen tables and in workplaces with folks who were just like, I just want to get treated with dignity and respect and just do what I needed to clock in and clock out and provide more for my family than I would. So those are the stories, and those are the places that I'm reminded of every single day, of individuals who do so much every day and just want to be able to get close to or be able to live that American dream that I so lucky was able to do and have.
Thank you. What about you, Lindsay?
Yeah, I think community service is something that was really important to my family. So always involved and always giving back. And I wasn't really sure how that played into my career. And it really was reaching out to a lot of women that have been supportive along the way, learning from them, trying new things, and finding my passion, which is helping women get into leadership positions and seeing their potential. And that was only through building a community and building relationships with great people, many on this panel and many more. We really need a community and a tribe to help us all succeed. And so I can't point to one thing, but I tried many, and you just got to follow what you like and follow your passion.
Sherry, we need to get Sherry in here. Sherry?
Hi. Hello.
Hi, Sherry. There you are. There you are.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, so actually I want to thank APAPA for having me here today to be part of this amazing panel of women who I admire so much. So to answer your question, I'm a first generation Indigenous Hmong woman, just like Councilwoman Chang Tao. And so we have a lot of very similar stories to each other. So what that means is that I come from a long line of refugees. And my father, my grandfather, they were all guerrilla war fighters during the war in Vietnam. And so as a matter of fact, my entire family before me was recruited by the CIA. So I grew up hearing about the stories of political warfare and how much that impacted me personally. And so growing up, my mom always had some sort of news on, and she taught me how to stay engaged in the political world because I was, we were impacted, our livelihood were impacted by politics. So Before I even started in elementary school, I learned about Lyndon B. Johnson, the Cold War, Kissinger, and politics for me was never just a job, but it was always a way to make life better for others, and that's how and why I got involved.
I hear a common theme among the four of you amazing women, and the theme is passion. It's dedication to public service and serving others. This is probably one of the key questions that young women tuning in would like to hear from each of you. And that is, from your experience, what skills do you feel young professional women these days need to develop in order to prepare for leadership executive positions that all of you hold today at your youth, during your youth? And I will start with Priscilla on this one.
Okay. I will say that for those that are seeking higher office or having a fancy title, I think my boss says it frequently is you don't have to be something to do something. And I think we've seen that over this past summer in particular of young people who don't have formalized positions of power, just leading and leading that change. And so I would say get something you're excited and passionate about and make some good trouble. As the great John Lewis says, start it, agitate a little mind, and see if you're going in the right direction. See if you can gather a few other friends, and then build.
Mm-hmm. Lindsay.
Yeah. I kind of echo what Priscilla said, where you don't have to have years and years of experience. You just have to have vision. You have to have a passion. You have to have courage, and you have to be decisive. And I think that if you got to focus on what's important to you and how you can make an impact. And I'll also say that building a relationship is really important. Nobody does it alone. So I would say if there's one real skill that I think is important throughout your life is to make sure that you're building bridges, making connections. You'll learn so much. And also, you always need that support and network to help you fulfill your dreams and support your communities.
Sherry.
Yeah, I would say I completely agree with you all. And I also would add that as an API woman, I think confidence, I think we face so many expectations on us, not only within our communities, but when we step outside of our own four walls. And I think when you're young and you're a person who has your own personal history of oppression, you go into this world that places a lot of expectations on API women to be model minorities, docile. So API women often go through this journey of learning how to use their voice and to recognize that our perspective and our experience matters as well. I mean, it took, a very long time for me to get here. And if you take a look at the numbers, it's like 1 in 4 APIs in California is struggling. But if you take a look at the API community as a whole, it's so diverse, where 44% of Hmongs in California are struggling disproportionately with poverty. And the highest number resides within the Central Valley. And only 15% of Hmong people in California has a college degree. So I had to really make peace with this and really own my self-identity and really push back on these stereotypes and say, hey, I belong here. I climbed out of severe poverty. My family survived a mass genocide, and I deserve a seat at the table too. So definitely confidence as well.
And of course, Jane Tao.
Yeah, I definitely concur with everything that these great women have all said. Definitely the confidence and the networking and finding good mentors. Finding good mentors, and it's actually really key for how I see it to be successful in these positions, because you need a way to stay rooted to your values, because when things will get hard and they'll get sticky, and you're going to need these mentors to turn to really, not to hold you to your values, but to really remind you that you do belong and that you deserve this voice at the table. And I know that for myself, it's extremely important for me to have my son look back at the work that I've done, the impact that I've created for, the intergenerational change or what have you, and be proud of that work. And so it's having not just the network, but the strong mentors, people who are going to support you and be there for you, no matter through all your ups and downs.
I think so too, and I want to conclude this point in terms of finding mentorship, that to encourage women, don't hesitate to go up to someone you admire and just say, I've watched you, and I was wondering if you can maybe give me some advice how to follow your pathway. Nothing's more complimentary than that, and not to be shy to approach women and just say, I really would like your help. And I'm glad that all four of you feel how important mentorship is. I'd like to now kind of ask each of you an individual question that really tailor makes to your background. And I'll start with you, Chantal. And when you decided to run for office, what was the greatest challenge and barriers that you faced, not only as a young Asian American woman, but someone who came from an immigrant background, who looks young? And you know how it is. Sometimes you have that young image really works against you, especially since all of you are so attractive. Sometimes that really works against you. So Chantal, tell me about that.
Yeah, there's institutional racism and sexism and institutional stereotypes about what a young Asian woman is. And so when I decided to run, it was an open seat, and I was running against 6 others. I believe my seat was the most contested in the whole East Bay at that time. And so the cultural part was really difficult, right? And so I had a lot of people in my own Hmong community come up to me and say, and let me just give some context. I don't represent not one Hmong person in my district, right? And so when I went to the Central Valley for that support, I was met with people coming to me saying, well, you're not married, you're a single mom, you have a child out of wedlock. Like, are you sure like people will even vote for you? And for me, that was really hurtful, but it's a cultural, it was, you only know what you know. And so I didn't, I already went through domestic violence. I'm a single mom. I put myself through college. Like, it didn't faze me, but I know that it's hurtful. Right. And so that was some sort of, that was a roadblock, really, not even a roadblock, a barrier that I had to like get over, because these were my community. But then I charged myself that we need to do a lot more teaching, a lot more learning and healing from that. And so, another great challenge is also the institutional sexism as well. I know that I've been working with large groups of organizations, and some of them were male dominated, and they didn't take me seriously because they saw me as this nice Asian woman. And at sometimes, it feels like they're just trying to bait you because they feel like being an Asian who is vulgar it means to be serious. And I had to get to that point for them to actually take me seriously. Literally, I had to take one of them to the side, say some really bad foul words to them. And then they said, okay, let's have a serious conversation now, Shane. When I was completely having a serious conversation for months with them, right? And so, these were a lot of the different barriers that really, we have to struggle through, not just as women, but as API women. And so it's the cultural aspect, the institutional sexism, and the stereotypes of like what an API woman is, right? It's supposed to be obedient or what have you. And so it was pretty difficult. But like I said, I have gone through worse. And so just charged through it. And with people by my side, a strong support system, it was really, you just don't know how many people are out there to support you in your story until, like you say, Maylee, asking for that support. People are there and they'll stick with you.
And of course, the challenges of your early life, too, I'm sure gave you that extra strength to be competitive and to stand on your own. Priscilla, I, for one, know the immense challenge that you face in trying to balance all of the special interest groups who just clamor for the governor's attention, who have issues. You're in charge of being the liaison to all those special interest groups. And it must be quite a challenge of how you balance the priorities, how you make the decisions that are going to benefit the governor.
I mean, one of the things that I do, I'm from an LA girl now living in Sacramento, is really just looking around and seeing who's not at the table. That's the first thing that I do. Is I think you have the traditional kind of special interests, or those that are part of the third house, you'll say, here in Sacramento. And I just look around and say, where are those voices that aren't included as part of the conversation before we even can start to kind of assess what's happening? And so that's one piece. And the second piece around prioritizations of issues, I mean, the governor has clearly stated kind of North Stars, if you would, within what he's done within his career, and what we've known as an administration that he wants to set forward. But then you have years like this one, where you can have great priorities and great dreams and goals, and then just life takes you in whatever direction. We have a pandemic, economic instability, energy, wildfires. Things are unpredictable. And so sometimes you got to be able to kind of adjust what those priorities are. But again, in all of those pieces, really looking at who is not at the table on all these issues, and do we need to have those uncomfortable conversations with folks?
How do you handle the uncomfortable conversations?
You have to be okay with people saying not so nice things to you, friends who you've known for years. And sometimes that, for me, it's just practice. Call somebody who you know is going to oppose whatever issue you are, but be okay enough to be able to speak truth to them. Be okay to make a call to them to say, hey, he's not moving in this direction, and be okay with them yelling at you and cussing you out for, a period of time. I think you have to be able to practice having those uncomfortable conversations in order to begin to have those honest conversations.
And not taking them personally.
Oh, absolutely not.
Took me a long time.
For the first 5 minutes you can, but you got to get over it at some point. Yeah.
But I think that the reputation you earned, though, Priscilla, and I have to say this, a lot of admiration, is you're very honest. You're very frank, and you don't BS. I mean, and people respect you for that. So Priscilla, that's tough to do. Sherry, describe how you were able to ascend in your career. I mean, you went from community organization to legislative staffer to chief of staff and now communication director. Those are a lot of steps of promotion in your young life. And how did you navigate that?
Well, my experience in politics was a little different. I mean, it was never my intention to be a chief of staff. I think it just happened to fall on my lap at the time, and I rose to the occasion. I was, never a legislative director, but I had worked in policy and political campaign and public relations within politics for 10 plus years. So in 2015, I did the best I could. I did something for myself, and I left California and moved to Washington, D.C. I lived in Annapolis, which is about 30 minutes outside of D.C., and was working there during the Trump and Clinton presidential race. And when Trump won, it was so disheartening for me that I decided to take a break from politics. I left for about 2 years, and I wanted to just really focus on, for the next few years and figure out where I needed to grow as a person. And so I left and went into the tech corporate world and worked in PR there for a few years. And what that did for me was that gave me room to really focus on my skills, focus on my professional growth. And I had a life outside of politics. So when I came back to Sacramento in 2019, I was just 10 times more confident in my skills because I had lived and worked in DC, North Carolina, Utah. So I had the ability to work with a diverse group of people and strategically execute and be effective as well as pragmatic. I've always been really like book smart and things like that, but life has a way of being a good teacher when you're out there by yourself. So yeah.
Did you find sometimes that when you became chief of staff that you were tested and not taken as seriously? Because here you are, this young Asian woman, and it's a chief of staff, and people that and I know that political environment in the Capitol, you have to really assert yourself because it's the survival of the fittest. Did you find that sometimes you were faced with that? You were taken as seriously as if you were a white male?
Absolutely. I think regardless, as an API woman, I'm speaking from an API woman's perspective. As I said earlier, the stereotypes that are placed on us are so intense, especially in the Capitol. And so when people talk about API, they don't necessarily understand what that means. They kind of just group API people all in one group, and they don't realize how diverse the API community is. And so it's a constant push back and forth of like saying, hey, this is who I am, this is my experience, and making sure that they know that I'm here because I deserve to be here.
Lindsay, I see as a person who's a master of so many trades. I know your career in terms of when you worked for a public affairs firm, and then I know that you started your own company and you managed clients, and now I think your position as the executive director of this women's organization is a real tribute to you. I think being the head of an organization, and I will say this, of all women, has its challenges, and it makes you develop some skills to try to not only manage an organization, develop the priorities, but to get these diverse interests of women to follow your path?
Yes. Yeah, it's a lot of listening. I think that's one of the biggest things is just understanding what the needs are of the community that you seek to serve, where they want to go, and where it fits in, and how you can help them be successful. So always listening to women all over. Our board, as you said, is very diverse and really powerful women that have rose through the ranks, and so much knowledge there. And so no matter how far you go, I see them listening and learning from each other. And it's been a great opportunity to be able to be part of those conversations and to hear what they have to say and to learn from them. Shang Tao, I must say, is a board member, and I'm so thankful to have someone like her on the board to really provide perspective on how we are going to build diversity, be inclusive, and make sure that we're serving all women of California. And so it's a constant, I think, for any organization, for any person in leadership, you always have to be listening to your staff and your board, listening to the communities you seek to serve, and learning from them, and finding that where you fit in to make the most impact and to be successful. I think the other big thing is, again, with California Women Lead, very fortunate to have a really engaged, successful board. And some organizations, that's a lot of work, but it's worth it to have a group of people that are there to provide insight, to do outreach, to support the efforts and support each other, and exude what your organization is seeking to do, to exude your mission and to help you reach those goals is so important. So again, that's just the network and having that trust and having those relationships where you guys can support each other and really believe in the work and accomplish great things. I think one of the things that is always important but has been so highlighted during COVID is communication effectiveness to be successful. It's, checking in with people, texts, Zooms, Skypes like this, to share information and to share learning and have that connection right now is so imperative, what APAPA is doing and others to have these opportunities. But I also think it's an opportunity and is needed to exude leadership and to exude the importance of, staying connected or whatever your goals may be. Having that communication is really important to not just share information, but make sure that you are staying relevant and you are building community, and your community is really understanding and seeing themselves in your work. I think one of the things too is, building diverse partnerships is really important for success of an organization. We have to, we're in it together. We can be supportive of each other, but it's also their perspective and learning from their communities. And again, we're all in this together. So making strategic partnerships where we can strengthen and reach, especially for us women, during this critical time where we know COVID is hitting women of color the most, has been super important to making sure that we are actually supporting women during these times. And that is, for California Women League, a big measure of success.
If I had to ask you, what is the most significant challenge you face as an executive director? A lot of people say fundraising. I don't know if that's your case, but what's the one major challenge that's the toughest for you?
Yeah, I think that fundraising, I think will always, is always a priority. I know it's harder for others, and I know we're going to have to be really creative in probably the year ahead, the next 6 months, just understanding that there's a lot of hardships out there. So how can we help support, and where do we fit in to build a stronger community, make sure that our members come out of this stronger, women come out of this stronger, and have that, and are having the conversations to make sure that we are, as a state of California too, providing the resources needed for women. I would say the biggest hurdle during COVID right now is just for California Women Lead, I should say, is that we strive in building strong relationships, strong bonds with each individual woman, because we really want to know how we can help that woman get to her leadership potential. How can she get an appointment? How can she get into elective office? And we do that with each individual woman. We have mentoring, coaching, and we used to be able to do that in person, where we got to see the women, really get to know them, and have and really think about what opportunities are out there for them. And so being able to connect individually has been the biggest hurdle. Having the time. We are all on Zoom all the time. We're all doing all that we can. And it just seems like we just need a little more time to make more phone calls, to check in with our members more. And so trying to have those opportunities that are unique, where we can feel safe and having those conversations and having real conversations, real answers when we have to do things virtually and crunch for time. It's been hard.
It's a tough job, I know. I'm going to throw in some fun questions now that you can just respond to. Don't have to go in real deep, but I think they're fun questions that women would be interested in. And I'll start this one with Sherry. Do you have a dream goal? A dream goal that you want to achieve in the future? Because all of you have so much more to accomplish because of where you are today and because of your talent. So, Sherry, any dream goal?
I think right now, really just doing the work to get Biden and Harris in the White House and continuing to grow and work with amazing women like Yvette Martinez, who has just walks the walk, and respectful men like Rusty Hicks, who have done an incredible job at getting the California Democratic Party back on track, and just also at the same time being the best wife possible to my husband. I've been married for 2 months now, and he's just been so supportive of me and just very flexible with my schedule. That's always kind of crazy. And so just ultimately just try to have a balanced life.
I know it's tough being a woman in politics, and it's tough for the spouse. My husband would say, when people would say, how is it being married to Maylee? And he says, it's like being in a 3-ring circus, but we're only in 1 ring. So Priscilla, what's your dream goal?
Getting through the next week without another disaster. That would be great in the short term. Honestly, for me, I think as a young kid, you're like, I have all these specific things, and a lot of it had to do with titles, right, and power. But I think for me, as I've reflected more, is how can I mentor and invest in the next generation in the midst of a million priorities that we have? How do we not just create a seat, but a bench? So just all the things the great work that everyone's doing to invest in that APAPA's doing to invest in that is something for me that I would like to be able to do and be more intentional about it and invest, take the time.
Ching.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I'm a really big person on making sure that, we are creating a bench for the next generation of leaders. But for me, the ultimate goal for me is to just to continue to be a change agent. I really truly represent working families. I'm all about lifting those whose voices are marginalized, or giving a voice to those who don't have a voice, right? And so for me, if I can do that and change and impact the change intergenerationally for families, that would mean everything for me. But at the same time, I truly charge myself with, I think it's my responsibility and many people's responsibility in order to create that change. We do need to mentor others, right? We got to get other people ready so that when we are changing our titles or when we are going to retire, that we bring on people who are going to carry that torch, because it doesn't make sense that you carry the torch and then there's no one behind you, because then, what's all the work for? And so creating that intergenerational change is so important to me.
Have you considered running for higher office?
I just won my seat. I have 2 more years before re-elect, but I'm just trying to do a great job at being a public servant. I always tell my community that, I'm in service to them. And so running for a higher office, maybe one day if the community so choose me to do that and tap me for the position. But right now I'm really focused on, being a great council member during this pandemic, really getting resources and answers out to my community and to the wider community as well. And so that's my concentration right now. And I want to do a fantabulous job at being a council member.
Lindsay.
I'm going to have to piggyback of what everybody has said about mentorship and finding great women to build the pipeline for us, and also really building awareness within our women community and in our populations that you don't have to have that title. You don't have to have 20 years of experience. You don't have to have, understand all the ins and outs of government or be a government insider to make an impact in your community and serve in government. And so building that pipeline of diverse women that really represents California to make sure that we're serving communities the best we can is something that I've signed up for and I'm focused on, and that's charging full ahead with that. And with all these great women, I'm sure we'll get there.
I like to ask this question. It's kind of a fun question, and it's a question that I've always asked myself throughout my entire career. But I'd like to ask each of you to give me what you feel are your strengths and give me where there are areas where you hope to improve on as you grow in your career. And I'll start this one with Priscilla. Gave you a hard one, Priscilla.
What are my strengths? This pandemic and this year has really taught me that I'm truly resilient.
Good.
I'm resilient. I think that and I think this is something for us also culturally, is you still oftentimes, you might know all the answers when you walk into a room, but you're sometimes scared to speak up and to be confident about that. And something that I still struggle with is when is that opportunity to raise your voice and to make it known and also create that impact. So I think for me, that's still a challenge.
Ching.
Yeah, for me, I think my strength is the willingness to always learn. I learn from everybody, no matter what your age or what have you. I love to just absorb information. And so I think that's my strength in regards to my something that I'm working on and working towards is really to, collectively get my words together to make it sound more butter smooth. Always working towards that. I feel like, yeah.
Okay, Lindsay.
I have to say, public speaking is definitely something always working on. But I think my strength is really just being flexible and having grit. And no matter what happens, nothing ever goes to plan. So no matter what happens, we have confidence. We're calm, and we make sure that we reach our goal for the day. I'd say, I guess the strength is, or weakness I need to work on is owning success and being able to vocalize and on that. I love to, bring everybody up and have community and share that success. But I think especially as a leader of the organization, we really got to own it and take credit for all the work that we're doing.
Sherry?
I would have to say that my strength is probably my ability to work really well under pressure. So grit and resiliency. I somehow always just seem to stay calm. It probably has to do with just doing a lot of meditation and yoga. And then my weakness would probably be working on my confidence and speaking up more. I think naturally I'm a very shy person, introverted person. And so working in politics and public service, you have to speak up. And so definitely that's something that I've been working on for the last 15 years.
No, I think all four of you hit a common theme that not only affects Asian American women, but affects Asian Americans, period, because the culture is not to speak up. And the culture is just to go along and to have to counter that culture that you're raised with of being quiet, just moving along, don't draw attention to yourself, is something that it's a barrier that we constantly have to deal with. I'm in this organization committee of 100, and these super fantastic, distinguished scholars and scientists and everything, and I find that they struggle, and it's amazing to me. So all of you have demonstrated that there is a theme where Asian Americans and Asian American women have to work on that ability of forcing yourself to communicate, forcing yourself to speak up, and forcing yourself to get out of your comfort zone, especially in the work space that all of you now are in. It demands a lot of great communication skills. So it's, all four of you validated that. I'd like to ask each of you now, was there any single role model in your life, whether you're growing up or in your career now, who inspired you? And I'll start with Sherry.
Yeah, I would say that my mom was an inspiration to me. She was the first progressive woman I knew. And, I just remember being a kid, and she'd been in America for about 5 years, and she talked about a woman's right to choose. And that was one of her biggest push in life. And she wanted to be able to make decisions for herself. And being a Hmong woman who grew up in the mountains of Southeast Asia, no one taught her that. It came from her own fundamental values. And so I would say my mom has been my biggest role model.
Priscilla?
Probably one of my key role models coming into the labor movement is Marilena Durazo, who's just a national figure who I watched go from shutting down streets with tens of thousands of people and agitating, and then the next minute walking into that boardroom to talk to those employers and negotiating out a deal that works for all. So that was really inspirational, but really just showed me that you can make people really uncomfortable, but you can also bring them together and create real change. So she's been awesome. I also call her Mexi Mami. I also learned a lot of Pocha Español, Spanish with her. So it's been great.
Xing Tao.
Yeah, same thing with Sherry. I think the Hmong people, the struggle that we have seen our parents in, that's been such an inspiration. So for me, I know that it's one person, but for me, it's got to be my mother and my father. They fled, right? They fled the war. They fled jungles with, my mother. She had an infant and a toddler, right? They're running for their lives. And she was shot. She saw all kinds of different kinds of death that no one should ever see, right? And then she was here, or they were put here brought here to the U.S. into a whole new world. They'd never seen snow before. They were dropped off in Rhode Island. Didn't even have jackets. They had to navigate all of these different things, right? Housing and how to figure out where to get money, and the bus system. When they didn't speak the language, they didn't have any friends, right? When Hmong people were brought over to the States, they were all separated, right, to lessen the burden. And so it's just been so inspirational to really see that they not only survived, but they survived, and they were really able to create a family where they were providing happiness in the household, right? And with nothing, with no dollars, and there were 10 of us. And so it's just a huge inspiration for me whenever I think about that. I always, when I feel down and I feel like, oh my gosh, someone just kicked me in my stomach and I probably can't get up anymore, I think about my parents, and if they can do that and survive, and they're still alive to this day and thriving, then I feel like I can do anything. Yeah.
Lindsay.
Yeah, I love to take this time to thank Maylee for your mentorship of so many women and helping me, and your kindness and strength has been very inspiring. And to read your book has just been a gift to hear how you paved a way forward for many women. And I think we can also relate to the story a little bit and see how we can persevere through challenges and make a place for ourselves and make such great impact. So I just want to take that time to thank you for all that you've done for the community. And then I would have to go along with the women as well as my grandma was in the internment camps and had everything taken away from her. And just to be able to see her fight to rebuild, have a sense of community, have a sense of trust, and have that strength of being knocked down as a second citizen or non-citizen and find a place in the world, graduate from college, and have a successful family and career has whenever I need a little bit of strength, I also think about my grandma. She's was the heart of the family, and so I carry that with me all the time.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you. I'm honored. I'm just honored. Thank you. This is a fun thing that I do in my panels because it really requires us to look into ourselves of who we are today. And young women who are watching this, and older women too who are watching this, like to know what makes you tick. So I want to ask each of you, what are three words that will define who you are today? And I'll start with Xingtao.
Who I am today, three words. Mother. I'm like,
this is hard.
Words. Okay, so mother, that's one. Mentor and mentee. Those are going to be my lifelong, defining of me, of who I am. Lifelong mentor and lifelong mentee, and of course, mother.
Lindsay.
I have to say that I hope when people think about me that they think that I'm kind and strong and had a ton of grit.
Priscilla.
That I'm shy. Just kidding. I'm really just kidding. That I'm sassy. No, that I'm really a sister in the struggle. That's a couple of words, so I just go by that.
Sherry.
I would say that I am pragmatic, resilient, and very humble.
And I think we're close to running out of time, but I know that all of you represent so much of women are striving to be today, or else, so appreciate hearing from all of you. But before we close, if you could give advice to young women college graduates who want to be like you, what would your advice be? And I'll start with Lindsay.
Yeah, just keep going. Everybody gets knocked down, and you just got to keep getting back up, and you'll find your place. You just got to keep searching, stay true to yourself, and keep at it.
Priscilla?
For me, it's get uncomfortable. If you want change, you got to build relationships that you don't have within your traditional circles. Dig in.
Xingtao?
For me, I always tell folks like you're on your own timeline. Right out of high school, in high school I took all honors classes, was accepted to college, but decided to take a break. From there I went to community college, and then went to UC Berkeley, and just really you're on your own timeline. Don't compare yourself to others, although always have a goal, and just make sure you have your mentors. Always reach out, because there's so many people out there, so many great people who are just wanting to mentor. So ask.
Sherry, there you.
Hey, I would say that every experience comes with a lesson. And so no matter how hard things get, something good is going to come out of it if you learn a lesson from it. So, keep going. Don't give up. We've all been there. Yep.
I think that in closing, I have to say that all four of you exemplify this generation of young Asian women compared to the days where in the 70s when I was just starting out. And it's so exhilarating to me to see how far Asian women have advanced in terms of defining who they are. In terms of my own experience, and I see that each of you have done that, it's so important to define ourselves, not just as Asian American women, but as just the best that there could be in our profession, and not to allow anyone to stereotype us or to corner us to be anything less than we are. And all four of you have done that in your career. And I think your sharing of your experiences hopefully will be enriching and really help this second generation of women who are climbing the ladder, who want to be where all four of you, and understand that all four of you are what I consider in the midterm of your life, that there's so much more to accomplish. And I really thank all of you for participating in this panel and for helping APAPA launch this leadership training for women and to benefit our next generation of women who are coming up the pipeline. Everything that you've shared with us is just so memorable and so appreciated. So I think with that, our panel is ended, and I want to see if there she is, Susanna.
Hi, Maylee. Thank you, and thank you, panelists, all great women leaders, for your insightful discussion as well as advice to all our future leaders. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.